What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a Detroit Lions addition they made this offseason. This is one of the most interesting signings the Lions made in free agency this offseason. This is wide receiver Breshad Perriman. So let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we're talking a little bit about another free agent addition the Lions made. And today, it's about Breshad Perriman from the New York Jets. And the Lions signed Breshad Perriman to a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Path that Breshad Perriman has taken to land with the Detroit Lions is extremely wild. I mean, he's been through the ups, he's been through the downs, right? This is a first-round pick that has been called a bust to having great moments. It's been a pretty wild trip for Breshad Perriman, and that's what I wanted to dive into today to try to learn about what we can expect from Breshad Perriman from this season, but also how Breshad Perriman kind of represents what the Lions are building in Detroit. And I know that sounds weird, like what the heck does that mean? But trust me, you'll get what I'm saying about halfway through the video. I think it's about halfway through. I'm doing the intro later, so I can't really remember what else I said in the original one, but I lost it. So how you doing? Enjoy the video. I'm going to just dive right into this thing, all right? So everybody do good, all right? I'm out. Breshad Perriman was a first-round pick by the Baltimore Ravens back in 2015, the 26th pick in the first round. This was a 6'2", 215-pound receiver that ran an unofficial 4.19 40 time, all right? 4.19 40 time. Now let's think about that for a second. Dang, it's already gone because it was so fast. Sorry, that was bad. I don't I came up with. Brad spoke on Breshad Perriman saying that, when he was there, they were doing the 40 times. Everybody's just looking around like, whoa, did that really just happen? He said he's never seen a guy run that fast at that size. And that's what's special about Breshad Perriman. But there were definitely some concerns with Breshad Perriman coming out into the draft. He had nearly 21 yards per reception, over 1,000 yards on only 50 receptions in his final season. Breshad Perriman's time with the Baltimore Ravens definitely did not go as planned. All right, he did not live up anywhere near expectations as a first-round pick. And I think Breshad Perriman used a great phrase, and I think what he said, it fit exactly what I think was a problem with Breshad Perriman back with the Baltimore Ravens. He called it like a dark black hole that he was in, right? He was in a black hole. It didn't seem like there was any kind of light. I mean, the way I interpret him saying that is that it didn't feel like there was light. Things just kept getting worse. He was just in a black hole. There's no escape. And unfortunately for him, a lot of labels that he carries with him now, not being able to catch the football, being a bust, a lot of that came from his time back with the Baltimore Ravens. And what I try to do is figure out, okay, well, what went wrong here? A lot of factors that go into it. But the reason I'm trying to answer that question is because he has improved since he's left the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, he's had some great things that he's done since he's left the Ravens. So what I'm trying to do is try to figure out, okay, well, what went wrong? Because if we can figure that out, then we can figure out how can we have him be successful, and will he be successful with the Detroit Lions? Now, as a fan, it's easy to kind of get caught up and just label him as a bust and move on because, we kind of had the same thing going on with Eric Ebron. Look, when you're a first-round pick, there's an expectation there, all right? There's an expectation for fans. There's an expectation from the team, from the organization, for what you're going to be able to accomplish. So all of a sudden, those expectations are on you. It's kind of like what's going on, not to the same extent, but we hear it this year with Jeff Okudah. People calling him a bust already after one season. You're a cornerback. You were thrown into the fire. It was an awful situation. But guess what? Half people will say he's a bust. He's a bust because he was a first-round pick. He was the 3rd pick in the draft. There's a legit expectation there. And when you don't live up to that, fans are not very patient with that as a player. And I felt like some of that is what was happening with Breshad Perriman. Look, the Ravens needed help at the receiver spot. They were a good team, but they needed receiver help. And you add on top of the fact that he dealt with an injury in his first year, so we didn't even get to see him play in his first year. There is some pressure there. There's already pressure. There's expectations when you're a first-round pick. But you add on the fact that you're out for your first year. Now there's even more anticipation. Like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see this guy. This guy needs to get healthy. One issue that I think there was is the injuries. Now, I don't want to sit here and say, well, injuries are why he was bad with the Ravens, because that's not fair to say. That's not a fair excuse. But I do think it was a factor. First off, the fact of just missing time. You're missing that first year. The anticipation grows. You're missing time that you could be working with your team, growing that chemistry with your quarterback. That's already an issue. I think missing that time with injuries is a problem. You head into your secondary. Guess what? You're going to miss a lot of your offseason because you have another injury. And these weren't things that he was dealing with back in college. He was better when he left the Ravens. So clearly it wasn't just simple as he's just a bust. he's been bad every single year. He's improved since he's left the Ravens. So something was going on there, because these are where his labels really come from. So what was going wrong with the Baltimore Ravens? And I think one factor I would like to point to is injuries, because of, like I said, missing time, but also he didn't seem like the same player on the field. And I think because of the injuries, it wasn't just simply he was hurt, but I think a lot of things come off of that. We said you knew the risk when you drafted this guy. There was risk to his game. He did have drop issues. He wasn't a great route runner. He was kind of raw as a receiver prospect. However, the good thing is that there was uncoachable traits here. He's 6'2". He runs a 4.2 40. He can stretch the defense. He's a vertical playmaker. Those things are things that we can't coach. There's other things that we could polish up in his game, but he has those things that we can't coach. And you talk about injury. So not only does it cause him to miss time, I also think personally that on the field, it slowed him down. And he wasn't the same player on the field. I personally think that. Not for every game, but I think there was definitely occasions where he was playing through some injuries and he didn't look like the same player. If any of those knee or ankle injuries slow him down at all, that's going to be an issue, because that's his biggest quality, is that he's big and he's fast. There's those uncoachable traits, but we already know he's sort of raw as a receiver. So when you slow him down at all with some of these injuries and you take some of the fear out of the defense, that's a very big problem. So you watch him back in college and you could see that, yeah, he wasn't a fantastic route runner, but a lot of routes could be set up based on his speed. You could set up comeback routes because of the amount of cushion they would give him, simple out routes, simple short routes. You could set up a lot of things, and then sometimes he could just simply win with his size. He could bully a cornerback because theirs too small. So even though he wasn't a great route runner, there was things that you could set up because he could scare defenses, because he has that ability to just simply take the top off. But I think when you take a little bit of that away when he was with the Baltimore Ravens, that led to some issues. So you take some of that away, all of a sudden he becomes a little bit more of a short and intermediate target for a guy like Joe Flacco. Let's also throw in the point that Joe Flacco was not playing that well at this point in time in his career. Nothing against Flacco, but this was that kind of time where he wasn't playing extremely well. Both years he had a sub 85 pass rating, right? So he wasn't playing that well anyways. We started to see then some of those issues in college show up at the next level. And that's a very big problem, because you're the first round pick, right? There's a magnifying glass on this guy already. And drops specifically were a very big problem, but you also saw some of the route running issues. He wasn't able to get separation in these short, intermediate routes consistently here. So it made it a problem when he was the target. It took some of the targets away from him because he wasn't consistently getting open. And many writers pointed this out, that he wasn't getting very good separation. I really think the injuries played a major factor for Breshad Perriman early in his career with the Baltimore Ravens and the results that we got. Of course, on the field, but not being able to get on the field. The lack of development there. To me, it's no surprise that all the issues that we saw in college showed up early in the career with the Baltimore Ravens. He was missing a lot of that time that these young guys, they need, right? They need this time to go out there to work with the team. Chemistry between Breshad Perriman and the quarterback, I mean, it just looked terrible with Joe Flacco. There were so many passes like this where they just did not look like they were on the same page whatsoever. And it's the timing of the NFL that Perriman had to adjust to. That was one of those things that he had to, get used to playing in the NFL. And he would get hated for things like this, not attacking the ball. There were 6 interceptions when it was thrown his way. But that's not the case with Tampa Bay, all right? It hasn't been the case since then. He does stuff like this. Some of this blame needs to go on Flacco for some of these awful throws. It's little plays like this, not making an attempt on the ball is where he's been killed by Ravens fans, but just little plays like this are different about him right now. To get experience under their belt, they need this. And then when you don't have that and you're young, and then all of a sudden things just start crumbling, and then, you don't have any confidence. It's like the world's going against you as a young player. That's a terrible situation to be in. It's really tough to get out of that. But now as he develops and he improves, you got Antoine Randall, like, dang, this guy just keeps getting open. And maybe we're starting to see some of that crazy talent that he has, and all of a sudden some of this is starting to come together. And he's improving in those areas that he struggled with back in college. He's only 27 years old. All right, so basically you take away that first year, he's like 26 years old. He's a very young player still that has a lot of improvement still in him, and I think we've seen that. I think this is a good example of catching the football and tucking it right away, and you can just see the time and effort that he's put into little things like this. Now, obviously, when you're getting hit, that makes it tough, but you can see there he's unable to come up with this catch. That's counted as a drop. Here's another example. You can see he's just knocked out, not able to tuck it right away, kind of bobbling with that one. But then you kind of see his awareness and his focus here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, we're going to get to this in a second, but in Tampa Bay 2019, and you can just see kind of the differences in his approach. Now, in this part, he's working with Antoine Randall, which is huge. But notice how he catches this, and he tucks it as soon as he catches that football, and he puts it into his body. And some of this is trust from the receiver that the quarterback's not going to put them in a position to basically get laid out like we've seen with some of the clips from the Ravens. But here's just another example. Same thing from the last clip. This one may even be better. He's going up to go get the ball in the air. You see how quickly he tucks it in. some of the lack of confidence. And you have to throw drops into that category. Now you may be thinking, well, he had drop issues back in college, so, this has nothing to do with confidence. He was just dropping passes. That could be true, but at the same time, he did improve upon this when he left the Baltimore Ravens. So yes, I think part of it is that he was simply just dropping passes, and that's not okay. But you also knew that risk when you drafted him. I think some of that also is due to a lack of confidence when you're dropping some passes. Look, the fans were very quickly not on his side anymore. And that happens. When you're a first round pick and you come out the gate struggling, it's tough to tell fans to be patient with that guy. And they were not very patient with Breshad Perriman, a guy that was missing time, which wasn't happening back in college due to injuries. They were sarcastically cheering him on when he would catch a pass. You could hear people yelling, "Oh my goodness, he caught the ball." Couldn't see that late. Things were just not going the right way. And then you add on to that, it got even worse. So they end up cutting Breshad Perriman heading into 2018 before the season starts. And in his words, they didn't tell him why they cut him. Now we can tell from an outside perspective, well, hey, you dropped 8 passes and you had less than 50 receptions. That's a problem. That's why they cut you. But for him, he was mad about that. See why he would be mad about that as a young player, to get released and apparently in his words, not be told why he was released. Then soon he gets another opportunity with Washington. And guess what? 4 days later, they cut him. So everything is just going wrong. It's like, man, I kept telling myself I was a first round pick for a reason. And that's when the Cleveland Browns came calling. And this was really the turnaround in a way. It was a small little resurrection for him to kind of wake back up and be like, okay, here's who I actually am. Here's who you wanted. It wasn't to the full capacity where he would look like a first round pick, but he definitely improved. And with the Cleveland Browns production wise, but also just the eye test told you that this was a different player. And he credits the success that he had with the Cleveland Browns to Baker Mayfield. He says, look, Baker Mayfield was a quarterback that 100% had confidence in you. When your quarterback has that confidence in you, you go out there and you can just ball, basically. And some other players pointed to this being the case as well. Greg Robinson, who was an offensive lineman, he said the same thing. Look, I was a first-round pick. I went through this as well. Higgins saying the same thing, who was a top pick that went through that. And it's just about that team having that confidence in you. And I think really what it was for Breshad Perriman was it was an opportunity. It was a team that gave him another chance. He was at the lowest of lows, and all of a sudden this team takes him in with warm or welcoming arms, and they bring him in. They're like, hey, we're going to give you an opportunity. You're going to get another shot here. We believe in you. We know that went wrong, but we believe in what you can do. No matter how much they paid him. It wasn't very much, but it was just that fact that he was getting another chance at this, another shot, to do it right. What I find very interesting about what Breshad Perriman said when he's giving credit to Baker Mayfield, saying, look, the quarterback believed in me. It's easy for me to go play. The team believes in me. They have my back. And then you talk about him comparing himself to the Cleveland Browns. Like people weren't believing in the Browns, but now look at us, we're turning this thing around. It's very similar to what Jared Goff said, right? I mean, Jared Goff saying, hey, it's nice to be in a place where they want me here, where they believe in me. Isn't that very similar? Isn't that weird how similar that is? I feel like there's a certain kind of mindset / approach to what the kind of players the Lions have been signing, right? The Lions are signing guys that want to compete. They want to go get a big deal. It's kind of like a last chance for a lot of these guys. But they're also signing guys that have kind of this chip on their shoulder mentality. And that's what Dan Campbell wanted. But you notice how it's very similar, right? Jared Goff feels like, hey, they believe in me here. The team wants me here. And now Jared Goff is a part of putting together this offense. And he's like, you know what? Lions offense is like, let's go get this guy named Breshad Perriman that when he felt like they believed in him, he played like a completely different player. I think the Lions may have taken a little bit out of the Browns playbook here in terms of what the Browns did, bringing a lot of these guys with a chip on their shoulder because, they didn't feel wanted where they were. They're welcoming with opening arms. And all of a sudden, they're starting to turn things around. Now, not all of these guys would last and stay there. A lot of those guys are no longer there for the Cleveland Browns, but it was a culture builder because it instilled the culture that, hey, we are the underdogs. Let's kind of band together on this thing. We've all been through this together. A lot of times your team is going to take on the mentality of the approach that your players have. And with the players coming with this approach, it's kind of what the team's going to take on. It's the identity that team is going to build and the culture. And that's when Dan Campbell says, hey, we're going to bite kneecaps, kneecap biters. And these players are all out here to bite kneecaps. And it's a reason to be optimistic about Jared Goff, and his kind of bounce back that he's looking for, the resurrection that he's looking for. We saw the resurrection happen with Breshad Perriman, and now he's looking for that again with the Detroit Lions. Work for the Browns. The Browns went 8-7-1. And like I said, not all the guys are there anymore, but it was put together of a bunch of players that were going out there and they wanted to prove everybody wrong, right? They wanted to prove the doubters wrong. And it's what the team has kind of built their identity on since then. Like, hey, yeah, we're the Browns, but our approach is, hey, you guys have hated us for years. Okay, we're going to go out there and we're going to prove all of you wrong. And that's what the players brought in first. And the Lions are bringing in those players to bring that mentality to the team, a team that has been, beaten. They've been battered, like in the words of Dan Campbell. But now all of a sudden, hey, guess what? That ain't going to happen anymore. We're going to bite some kneecaps on the way. I can't tell you how many wins we're going to get, but we're going to bite kneecap. When they threw the ball his way, he had 134 pass rating. Baker Mayfield had a 134 pass rating when the ball thrown his way. These expectations of the first round pick, the pressure is on. They're not there anymore. You got this cheap deal. You're just, hey, it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. But they're taking you with welcoming arms, and he's kind of playing a little bit more free. He's playing a little more loose. And statistically, the numbers just kind of came out of nowhere. 16 receptions, 340 yards. He was averaging 21 yards per reception. Those are college numbers that he was putting up. I think we got a very telltale sign that some of this was the case when he had 2.2 yards per target in the season with the Ravens. All right, now let's think about that for a second. A deep threat, not known for a lot of receptions. His job is usually take the top off, right? He's averaging 21 yards per reception in his last 2 years in college. It's 6th and 5th in NCAA football, and he had 2.2 yards per target. That tells me there was something going on there, because John Harbaugh's not that dumb where he's saying, well, let's just make him a short route kind of guy. There was something going on there. And whether that's the quarterback play, that's the injuries he was dealing with, some of it was scheme issues, whatever the factors may have been going into it, the fact is that's a problem, and there's something going on there that's not right. And then we saw when those yards got up, his highest yards per target, that's when we saw most successful. So something was going wrong there. I was just thinking, if it was such a good year, then why didn't they re-sign Breshad Perriman? Well, they did re-sign Breshad Perriman, sort of. They were going to make the deal with Breshad Perriman, the $4 million deal. It was done, but then the Cleveland Browns went and made the trade for Odell Beckham, and once they did that, he asked out of his contract and got the 4-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which was his next stop, which ultimately was a great blessing in disguise because he landed with Antoine Randall L. And if we would have knew what we knew now, Dan Campbell being our head coach, that he would hire Antoine Randall L., that's a great situation. And is that number 3 receiver. Now, he has a little bit of an impact, but it's really towards the end of the year where he takes off. He has a solid impact, but what's important about this season is that, again, he's not dropping passes, and he is healthy with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But it's towards the end of the year where he takes off with Tampa Bay. And this is where he met the Lions wide receiver coach, Antoine Randall L. And this is a very important factor because Randall L. being now our receivers coach has said a lot of great things about Breshad Perriman. But Breshad Perriman with Tampa Bay was a completely different player than he was with the Baltimore Ravens. So towards the end of the year is where we really saw him shine. Mike Evans went down with an injury against the Indianapolis Colts. Chris Godwin went down with an injury in the third quarter against the Lions. So he was already making plays before, Chris Godwin went down, before, he became the top guy. Week 13 to week 17, he was one of the best receivers in the league. Stretch, he had 25 receptions for 500 plus yards and 5 touchdowns. All right, we're talking about 5 weeks here. The guy had 500 receiving yards. Think about that for a second, right? If you put that out for a whole season, you're looking at like 1,600 yards receiving. He was on pace for more receptions than he's ever had at any stage of his career. He was on pace for basically 75 receptions in a full season. So Antoine Randall L., he just kept getting open. Whatever reason, he just kept getting open. And when you're fearing that guy, that in 2018, we saw what he did with the Browns, and he's all of a sudden just taking off, right? He's taking the top off, and you're fearing that guy. Winston's not afraid to take shots. That opened up everything else. It opened up the short. It opened up the intermediate routes. It opened up the drags, the comebacks. It opened up everything else because now they're scared of that deep ball. Another important element that I didn't bring up before is that all of a sudden you're a part of a team that has a really good offensive line. With Cleveland, they were a really good offensive line, and with Tampa Bay, they were a top 10 offensive line as well. So it was giving Winston time in the pocket to throw that, and that'll come up bigger for the next team that we talk about. One drop on 80 targets. Think about that. He was one of 5 receivers, I believe, to do that. One drop on 80 targets. You're talking about a guy that was labeled as he can't catch a lick, to all of a sudden he's catching everything thrown his way. He's a deep threat. He's snagging balls out of the air, and you can just see, watch him on film, the guy is ridiculously aggressive. He's going up again, he's running by guys. He's got the confidence, he's got the swagger, and all of a sudden he's saying, heading into his next deal, he's like, hey, that was just a little glimpse of what's to come. People were thinking he was going to land $20 million, that offseason. He only landed 6.5. It turned out probably to be the right deal for the New York Jets, but he definitely got paid some money. And with the Jets, they brought him in to be one of their top weapons. Now with the Jets, things didn't go terrible, but it definitely, once again, didn't live up to those expectations. All right, they had an expectation he was going to be one of their top guys. He was going to be their top guy, basically, and that didn't happen. He had a solid year, 30 receptions for 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. Things that we have to mention here. First off, he dealt with injuries again, right? We saw the ankle injury. We saw a concussion. Micah Hyde laid a big hit on. We saw the injuries start to come up again in this season, so that was obviously a factor. But then the quarterback play was just not good. He had Sam Darnold, who had a 72.7 passer rating for 12 weeks of that season. And what's wrong with Sam Darnold is he only had 6.1 yards per attempt. He wasn't taking shots consistently. And you look at Joe Flacco, he only played in 4 games. But again, pairing up with Joe Flacco, that didn't go well in Baltimore. 6.4 yards per attempt for an 80.6 pass rating. So he had a bad quarterback play. Their offensive line was dreadful. It was bad. They allowed the most pressures in the NFL in less than 2.5 seconds. So it wasn't a great season. He did end up having 3 drops accounted for this year, but it still was better than what he did with the Baltimore Ravens. I think what we learned from all of this, and I think what you could take away from the situation, we're asking, okay, what can we expect the Detroit Lions, is there's a couple of very important factors here. First off, the factor that Antoine Randall Ellis here is Lions wide receiver coach. He wanted Breshad Perriman. If you listen to him speak on Breshad Perriman, he's like, the guy just kept getting open. I feel like this is one of those guys, they're going to be a playmaker for us. So knows how Antoine Randall Ellis teaches his receivers. He's saying, hey, look, he knows how I'm going to want to teach these guys. So he's going to already have, a little bit of a head start. So that connection is very important for both Antoine Randall Ellis and this Lions offense and, figuring out, okay, how do we want to build this thing? Because, Jared Goff had a say in this based on how the Lions are doing it, which is very important as well, because that tells me that Jared Goff probably wanted this receiver there as well. He wanted him to be part of this offense. He wants that type of guy, which kind of takes him back to his Cal days of those bigger receivers on the outside. Breshad Perriman had that connection. He gets the connection with the receiver coach that he's familiar with. And not only is he familiar with him, it was his best season of his career when he stepped in for Tampa Bay when he was with Antoine Randall Ellis. So not only did he play well, but we saw the best peak version of Breshad Perriman that we've ever seen in a glimpse when he was with Antoine Randall Ellis and he was given those opportunities. So I think it's important that Jared Goff, I think, will be the best quarterback that he's played with. Baker Mayfield is good in his rookie year, but you're talking about a rookie Baker Mayfield, end of career Joe Flacco, who was not playing that well. Then you talk about Joe Flacco again and Sam Darnold. Those are the quarterbacks that he's been with. And don't forget 30 interceptions, Jameis Winston. The good thing about Winston is he took a lot of shots, but he was not playing with very good quarterbacks, giving guys another opportunity. And that's kind of what this is. You have a chance to land a big deal next year. You're going to get an extra opportunity with the Lions, right? You're going to get that opportunity. And last time we saw him at the lowest of lows, he got a new opportunity with the Browns. Look what it turned into. Breshad Perriman, like the Lions, has no expectations. No one thinks the Lions are going to go out there and win a whole bunch of games. I mean, we're projected the second lowest win total in the NFL. We don't have these expectations. So we can just go out there and shock the world, basically. And the same thing goes for Breshad Perriman. He's getting this cheap deal. A lot of people just going by the label. He's a bust. It doesn't really matter what happens with Breshad Perriman. Some people don't even think he'll make the team. So why not just go out there, play loose, play free, go play just like you did with Antoine Randall Ellis, ball out, prove everybody wrong, and then boom, next season when the salary cap skyrockets, go get yourself a payday. And if you want to come back with us, maybe that happens. But go get yourself a payday then. Why not make that happen and just prove everybody wrong? Because everybody's going to count us out anyways. To go out there, what the coach is going to be asking of you. They wanted you here. It's your chance to go out there and earn and take that role. I would argue that T.J. Hockenson, DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, very likely, and Tyrell Williams all have more receptions than Breshad Perriman does this season. But Breshad is a deep threat. He's not a big reception guy. He's never been a big reception guy. He is a deep threat, keeping that confidence. And what the Lions have done this offseason, the way that I've heard from the coaches, knowing how to get the best out of their players, I have no doubt the Lions will be able to do that. And I think that's the biggest factor. If he has confidence, this guy can be something completely different because that's what we saw when he was confident. Second thing is going to be staying healthy. He needs to find a way to stay healthy. The Lions got to keep this guy on the field, right? It's important that, you're going to deal with some dings and bangs, but you really want to keep this guy on the field. And I think he's going to be very motivated to be on the field. It's not going to be the top reception guy. It's going to be the deep threat. If you're going to use him to his best ability, if he can be healthy, we know that he is a phenomenal deep threat. He's a guy that takes the top off. He can attack the ball in the air. He's not going to get 70 receptions, but what he will do is he's going to open up that defense. He's going to take the top off, and if you're going to sink down, if you're going to start playing tight, trying to take away T.J. Hockenson, trying to take away that run game, trying to take away St. Brown, those will be the guys that rack up receptions, but he'll be the guy that stretch the field, take the shots deep, be a mismatch. If you're going to use him on short routes, the way I've seen it be most successful, bubble screen, so you can allow him to use yak and his size. You use him on easy short routes, not that are, route based, but short routes that are based on his size that get him open, that are developed that way, not based on him being able to make quick cuts, sink into routes and, get open that way. You can use him on corner routes. You can use him on deep drags. He's more of that long developing type of guy that can be hit on some quick hitters, but for him, it's going to be about confidence. And what we've seen is when he has confidence, he's great. So what will he do with the Lions? I don't exactly know, but I can tell you what, he's in a situation I think is going to be really good for him. Just label him and say he's a bust and he can't catch anything. With the Ravens, yes, that was the truth, but I like to dive in and try to figure out why that was the case. And I think what we've learned here is there's a lot of factors for it. But if you take away the fact that, that happened, and you just take away the fact that he was a first-round pick, the guy has done some amazing things in the NFL. He's shown some upsides that not many players have. You can't teach 4.2 at 6'2". All right, you just can't teach that. Not many guys can do that, and he can. He has that special ability that the Lions, they really can't coach. But now you're connecting him with a guy that he was his most successful with. Good things can happen here. I don't know what's going to happen, but if he's going to be successful, I think this is a good spot for him to be in. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching. What do you think Perriman looks like this year? And I'm out.